What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. I'm Drew Dinkmeyer, joined by the two best in the industry at breaking down news and injury information, Justin Fan from Underdog Fantasy and Mike Gallagher from Established Run. Justin, how are you on this fine Friday?
Doing well, man. Excited to be back on the grind. Excited to have games going on. This is what we do. So pumped to be back on the show with you boys. And we didn't do enough content during the preseason, so I figured we do a little bit more.
Exactly. Just 18 hours of divisional previews that I could hide my guys from everybody else. Mike, how are you on this Friday? Matchups wearing you down, but how are you?
Matchups wearing me down. I think I'm at like 15K words for 3 columns for the week. So with a 2-gamer included in there. So yeah, I've been going good. But let me tell you, it is writing up my guy Jason Tatum feels really good when I write matchups. So I did not reach for him, fan.
Yeah, I mean my first round pick, my guy.
Oh,
ravaged by injuries right now.
Oh, it's bad.
Cam got hurt, a little cramping the other night. Then obviously Jalen got the orbital surgery today, out at least a week. So been a tough go of it, but it's early on in the season. Plenty of season left.
Well, I mean, it wouldn't be anything more than your guy, fan, if guys weren't battling injuries. I mean,
exactly.
That's the perfect,
very on brand.
Perfect brand connection for you. All right, we've got 11 games on the slate tonight. We've got a number of injury situations. We'll try to focus on the most important ones. Let's start with kind of one of the bigger ones on the night. The question mark for Jamal Murray and the Nuggets. Jokic is listed probable here. It is the front end of a back-to-back for Jamal. It's also that the first game was such an embarrassing loss to Utah that I think it actually might change the dynamics of things here a little bit, potentially. And in addition, it's also the site of where he went down and got hurt. And I don't know if that mentally, for a player that took a long time to come back and be like mentally ready, which is what everyone was saying last year, I don't know if that plays into the decision tonight. But then the game tomorrow is the home opener for them against the Thunder, a very winnable game. But when you drop one to Utah, you might want to make sure you get the one against the Thunder, is one of the things that I'm thinking through. Justin, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on Jamal's availability tonight, which is simply rest-oriented and load management-oriented?
Yeah, this is tricky because this is an ESPN game as well, and against the Warriors, and they get the Thunder tomorrow. So just thinking of it how I would traditionally think of it, this makes sense to play the front end tonight on a national TV game than sit against the Thunder tomorrow, where it should be a winnable game against that team. So yeah, it's tricky. I think we have to kind of watch MPJ as well. I'm not sure if he has any restrictions. Obviously, he played 35 minutes in the opener, 35 and a half, so it doesn't look like he's too limited, but he's a guy I'm keeping an eye on just in case as well, if he's some late ad or if he sits tomorrow. But Jamal, clearly limited in the opener, didn't look himself. Played 13 and a half minutes in the first half, and then had that ankle tweak, was into the locker room for a little bit, then came back. The comments afterwards, Malone's going to give him a little bit of rope, which he should. He's still working his way back. But yeah, I mean, he's a clear fade for me still. They have the luxury of having Bones Highland in that second unit. Don't really have to push him too hard. My lean initially is these guys play tonight, and then we see some rest tomorrow. But I could be wrong, just kind of what Dink outlined. I will note that this Jokic probable thing, we obviously talked about that wrist sprain that he suffered during the preseason where he had that big wrap on it. This is the same hand for the finger sprain. So just want to throw that out there. He didn't look too limited against the Jazz in the opener, but it's kind of piling on that right hand, right wrist for him at this point.
Yeah, fan hit pretty much everything. Definitely keep an eye on that right hand for Jokic. I'll add Bruce Brown, mostly backing up MPJ, did get some overlap there. So I would expect him to pick up a pretty big workload if Jamal doesn't play. Bones looked horrible in the opener as well. Their bench was just disastrous in the first half. But yeah, fan pretty much covered everything else.
Yeah, and while we would be excited by the potential upside of someone like Bones Highland if Jamal Murray sat, I think the floor is still pretty shaky with Ish Smith behind him. With Mike Malone's temperament towards Bones Highland's play, there's a lot of potential risk there, and I do think Bruce Brown would be the most stable beneficiary in that situation. But obviously, you take Jamal out, you take a lot of usage out, and that would help Jokic on the upside as well. tricky spot for the Nuggets. I feel like if they had won the game against the Jazz, I'd feel much, much more comfortable about expecting their guys to play. But I think there's some psychological stuff about wanting to make sure that you have your guys to get the home opener under your belt, and also maybe giving Jamal an extra day in between games, and also maybe avoiding going back to Golden State, where the incident happened initially. So we'll see. It's a late game. I'm not expecting that we get this information before lock.
Let me ask you something. You touched on this too with Ish Smith looming. If Jamal ends up missing, handicap the percentages that Bone starts and handicap the percentage that Ish starts.
So I think it's Bones or
Bruce Brown, maybe
Bruce
Brown.
Okay. I think it's one of those two guys, and I think against the Warriors it might be Bruce Brown, just because of the defensive stuff and having a little bit more length to fight through screens and switch. But I think they want ideally Bones leading the second unit from an offensive perspective, and Malone's a guy that likes to keep his units, similar to Tibbs, likes to keep his units largely intact. So I think Brown I'd have slightly ahead of Bones in terms of likely to start. I think it's very unlikely that Ish would start in this matchup specifically.
Yep, I agree. And I'll add too, they run their practices a lot of first unit versus second unit. So, pulling Bruce out definitely messes that up a little bit too. But yeah, I'm pretty much agree with everything you said.
Okay, let's get into Denny Abdija, who was a surprise starter in the opening game after missing all of the preseason, and then immediately the right ankle sprain pops up again, and he has to go for the second half. Anthony Gill started the second half instead of Will Barton, which was also a little bit of a surprise, but an indication that they really do want Will Barton to be kind of the sixth man off the bench and not part of the starting unit. Abdija is one of the early games tonight as Chicago travels to Washington. Listed as questionable with that ankle sprain. Any thoughts or indications here on his availability, Mike?
Should be pretty good, I think. He said he would have came back in the game, so pretty good indication he should be out there.
They were playing from way ahead.
I would expect him to play. Should probably start. Like you said, props to the Wizards for keeping that quiet, but he after the game, Wes Unseld said we really want a lot of length on the wing, which is why they put him there. And then Will could kind of run the second unit, which is a role he should fit in, right? We've seen him be that guy when the Nuggets are really shorthanded. They would, really run through Will. So it makes total sense. It was really just a matter of timing with Denny getting over the groin injury. So I would expect him to go pretty good minutes going his way.
Yeah. The only other note I'll have from that game in game one was Monty Morris only 21 minutes. What was up with that? Mike, you've been drinking the Monty Kool-Aid as most of us have all preseason. What are your thoughts on the 21 minutes in the opener for Monty?
Yeah, as you mentioned, they were playing from ahead, going against a star guard and Tyrese Halliburton. They've said before that they will lean into DeLon Wright in those types of situations, and that's what happened. So I'm definitely expecting more minutes there. But pretty nuts. And also should add, Kristaps tweaked his ankle pregame in celebrations in the same game that Miles Turner turned his ankle. Like, my God, I wish the odds on that, like 1 in a million, both starting centers hurting their ankles pregame.
Well, let's transition right to those Indiana Pacers. Miles Turner is ruled out tonight. Jalen Smith also questionable on the injury report with right knee soreness. Knee soreness early in the season is just never a good sign for a player who has had some injury concerns in the past. Aaron Naismith also questionable with left foot soreness, another player who has had a lot of injury concerns in the past. Fan, I thought he was gonna be your guy, but he's not. Benny Matherin with 28 minutes and a really solid showing off the bench. What are your thoughts on the availability of Jalen Smith and Aaron Naismith tonight for Indiana?
Yeah, so Jalen's dealing with some tendonitis, so I think this is going to be a lingering thing. He was limited in the first half due to foul trouble. I don't think that's really a concern. He's averaged like 3.7 per 36 over his career, 4 fouls per 36 as a starter. So kind of fluky where he only played limited minutes in the first half. He played 15 and a half minutes in the second half. So I think that's more in line with what we expect, a fuller workload for Jalen Smith. I will say that Isaiah Jackson was a real surprise not starting in this spot. Terry Taylor got the start. And then Isaiah's role just in general dwindled big time as the game went on. He came in early just because Jalen got in early foul trouble, but he played just 2 minutes in the second half and got in behind Goga Bitadze too. So this Isaiah Jackson role is very concerning, even without Miles Turner. I was on like Jackson 100 to 1 to be blocks per game leader just because I thought he had upside with Miles Turner and Buddy Hield. That trade looming to the Lakers, given how bad they look. But if they're going to kind of continue to muddle this up, this whole Terry Taylor, Jalen Smith, Goga Batadze, Isaiah Jackson, it's just going to be a bit of a mess, for us to deal with. So he's a stay away for me, just given how little he played in the second half. Terry Taylor just a nominal star at this point. He's kind of undersized, but he obviously played a lot down the stretch when everybody was taking PTO. Played just 24 minutes. That's about what you would expect for a spot start from Terry Taylor. So not too interested in this front court. Like I said, Jalen Smith, I think his minutes will bounce back. He got into foul trouble and that limited in the first half. Obviously, other takeaways from this game. My guy, Tyrese Halliburton season, as always, he will be a absolute stud every night. And I think it's really only a matter of time before Gallagher's guy, Benny Mathurin, starts over Chris Duarte.
Yeah, Duarte got hit in the face in that game and missed some time, so that's why his minutes were down in that game. But Mathurin really took the ball and ran with it. Nesmith, if he was out, I think that would open up more additional playing time for both Chris Duarte and Benny Mathurin in that situation. I think you could even see Mathurin start to push. The 28 off the bench is not unusual for what we would expect going forward, given the lack of scoring that this team has off the bench and given how much they want to let him run. But Duarte should see his minutes pick back up just because he left the game due to getting hit in the face. And that's not going to happen every night.
A few things to add. One, should note the matchup against Jakob Poeltl. If Isaiah Jackson doesn't play a good bit here, it's really bad. I would be surprised. You would think they wouldn't start Taylor. I don't think they want to put Jalen Smith down there against Poeltl. 21 potential assists for Halliburton. Just ridiculous role for him.
Led the league.
Led the league. Yep. It's going to be really, really up there. So, and then also, Fan, if you call Mathurin your guy 10 times, I'll trade him to you for free.
Just straight dollar.
$500 for Benny Mathurin.
Am I fighting this summer get together, boys?
That's right.
Sounds like that's the plan. All right, let's keep it moving on the injury front. From Indiana, we go to Orlando, where Cole Anthony was a late scratch, essentially, in the opening night of the season, which always is fun. You think you're settled on opening night. You think you know all the injuries, and then Cole Anthony gets hit with an illness, questionable. He did go through shoot-around. He's listed as questionable again on the injury report today. Gallagher, what are your expectations? Do we see Cole Anthony make his debut tonight?
Yes, went through shoot around, even did an interview with the Magic. I think his name's Dan Savage, covered it with them. Looked fine. Looked like he had a good 3-4 minute interview that I watched and didn't show any signs. So expecting him to go out there, certainly starting. The question is who starts next to him. Jalen Suggs was tired in that game in his return, and it led to some RJ Hampton minutes along with some other players too. So probably you would think it's still going to be those two guys, with Suggs generally looking okay coming off the knee injury. But yeah, Cole should be 100% good to go in what'll be a really bad matchup for him. Dejanta Murray was exceptional on the defensive end in the opener.
Yeah, Suggs got real hot in that second half to kind of bring Orlando back as an Orlando plus 3.5 backer. The Isaiah Stewart 3-ball to end the game was just broke me, honestly, on that night. I did not expect to be fading while up 1 in Isaiah Stewart 3-ball. But it was what it was. The keynotes for the Magic, I would say, they showed, although RJ Hampton played, you alluded to, Suggs got a little bit tired. That's why Hampton got in. He didn't play any first half minutes. Would not expect him to be in the rotation. I think that's a really positive thing if you think the Magic can outperform this season, because RJ Hampton's been one of the weakest players in impact in the league for a while. And they went with these huge second unit lines that I think are going to be pretty tough to score on this year for opposing second units. So something to factor in. I know it was weird. Detroit actually made a really, really big run in that second quarter or against the unit. But I think generally, if teams aren't shooting the ball really well, they're going to play zone and just have these huge wingspans all over the place. They basically played point Franz with Bull, Mo Bamba, Okeke. It was just huge out there. Yeah. And I think that's kind of an interesting look for Orlando going forward.
Love it. I'll add, just to add really quick, 15 shots at the rim for Paolo in the opener. Holy crap. You freaking love to see it.
My guy was cooking. My guy was cooking. All right, let's go to not Justin Fan's guy, not Mike Gallagher's guy, not my guy, not even Nick Nurse's guy, Chris Boucher on the injury report alongside Kem Birch. Maybe Nick Nurse would claim that he's his guy a little bit last year. They had a little bit of a fling where he seemed to get back out of the doghouse. But both Boucher and Birch questionable tonight. They did not play in the opener, and so we saw some Christian Koloko minutes. And it sounds like that's something that they want to do this year, but obviously it's Nick Nurse in Toronto. They play super tight. Do we expect to see Kem Birch or Boucher make their debut tonight? And if so, how would it affect the rotation, Justin?
Yeah, so Kem Birch said he'll play. He'll be in the lineup, so he's back. Boucher, I think, has a decent chance of returning as well, which obviously jumbles this up even further. The Precious Achiuwa debut did not go quite as expected, but I will, to his credit, say that he played 13 minutes in the second half. So his role expanded as the game went on. I think Nick Nurse said afterwards that Koloko was more of a matchup play in this spot. So I don't think this is like going to be a thing moving forward where he's going to really cut into Precious's minutes. I think Birch is going to compete with Koloko for that, last front court spot on some nights. It'll be mainly Boucher and Precious, I would imagine, moving forward. So the debut for Precious wasn't ideal, but I don't think I'm ready to sound the alarms just yet. I think, like I said, 13 minutes second half after Koloko ate into his minutes early. Just want to continue to see what that usage looks like. So I don't think Birch is going to have much of an impact. He's going to more compete with Koloko, I think.
Yeah, Koloko basically subbed in the Boucher spot when, based on the preseason rotations, he was subbing in Precious and Boucher together in the preseason. We saw that in game one. The quotes, as you alluded to, were crazy. According to Nurse, Precious had, quote, a shaky first half, quote, the moment got him, and, quote, he had to get him out of there. What? For a guy that had a tremendous buzz, Nurse picked him to break out this year. Obviously, the Athletic's been pumping him up too, so pretty crazy. He did like Koloko, but yeah, again, he'll be competing with Boucher in a pretty significant way. It's a position battle to watch for that kind of
matchup tonight against Brooklyn, where you typically don't need size in terms of bulk, but you need some length with Simmons, Claxton, and Durant in that starting lineup. Do you guys expect Birch or Koloko to be in the rotation tonight? We're kind of splitting a very small role in terms of the minutes projections. I think we're splitting 7 minutes between the two of them. Mm-hmm. And this all as a reminder, Otto Porter Jr. is still out as well. Mm-hmm. So like this front court, there's going to be so many bodies during the course of the season that Nick Nurse can go to. I think it is going to be a hot hand type situation. But do you guys think do you think anything changes substantially with, does Juancho come out of the rotation? I think Juancho comes out when Otto Porter is back, but does he come out tonight when Birch is back? What do you guys think?
I'll just say from a higher level, this Nick Nurse seeing this injury report, he gets giddy because he can just play his starters 38, 40 minutes. And exactly. We saw a little bit of that in the opener, even with OG at 38. I think Gary Trent played 37. Van Vliet was.
They did say they were going to take it easier on Fred, so Fred got 39 instead of
But like Siakam, I think he can get up. He played 34. He can get up to 36, 37 pretty easily.
He fouled out.
Yeah, he got in foul trouble. But yeah, I think we see a tighter rotation. I don't think those guys have really significant roles off the bench, especially in this matchup.
Okay, cool. Let's move over to, why don't we stay there since they're playing Brooklyn? We have the return of Joe Harris tonight, who the injury information on Joe Harris this offseason was really a roller coaster. Really, the last 12 months on Joe Harris's ankle issue have been Zach Lowe was speculating that he was hearing things that they didn't know if Joe Harris was going to be able to play again. It was really crazy. And then training camp comes around and they're like, oh no, he's healthy and he's fine. Then he plays a few preseason games and they're like, oh no, he's hurt again. And so he misses the opener. He's supposed to be back available tonight with this foot issue that he's been dealing with. What are your thoughts in terms of playing time expectations for Joe Harris tonight? Mike, I'll start with you.
Got to be light, right? He's been out for so long. Setback. Basically, looking at the rotation, more or less putting him in Sumner's spot, right? I think that makes the most sense, looking around 20 minutes. We'll see if it's Sumner versus Cam Thomas. Cam's been really quiet. They may want as much length as you can get out there against those big Toronto guys. So probably not a great night for Cam Thomas. But yeah, you can't expect much out of Joe Harris in his return.
Yeah, they could really use the shooting. I noted this in a social clip that will come out later on the channel or on our feed on Twitter. But they had a 90, I think it was a 95 or 98 offensive rating in the preseason. They had 105 offensive rating in the first game. The only two teams that were worse than 105 last year were Orlando and Oklahoma City. And this is all really small sample stuff, but it's not great. It's real. Like this team was supposed to light the league on fire offensively with KD and Kyrie and Simmons setting things up. And obviously the loss of Harris and Curry in terms of shooting has limited some of the offensive upside. They did go against a very good Pelicans team, but they're going against a pretty good Raptors team tonight. So
what do you guys have Joe Harris at right now in terms of minutes?
Actually, I was actually thinking about that and looking because I think we're probably too high.
I think you're probably too high.
We have him at 24.
Yeah, I would
That's
go.
I
would actually kind of be surprised if he goes over 20, honestly.
Okay, so 18. You guys
you look at that Sumner Cam Thomas spot. It's like 8 minutes in the first half, 6.5 minutes in the first half. That's like been the rotation. Yeah. And he talked earlier today. He's like very unsure about what his workload is going to be. And this is his first game back, and he had a setback. Obviously, in the preseason, he played a couple. So I think this is like a spot where they like really take it easy and make sure he's healthy, just so he doesn't suffer another setback and he's not back on the injury report sideline. So I would be like 18 to 20 more like.
I would even go down, man. I think his range is like 12 to 20.
I agree.
Yeah, he may just get 2 rotations, 2 6-minute rotations or something along those lines. Like at most like 4 5s, or maybe even like very, very most would be like 23, I'd say. But like, I'd probably put it probably like 17. Yeah,
we'll pull him down there. All right, on to Houston, where Jae'Sean Tate missed the first game, is still out with that left ankle soreness. Ty Washington out with a left knee sprain as well. Daishen Nix questionable with back soreness. I think they're pretty comfortable, like just working all the guard minutes between Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., and Eric Gordon and Josh Christopher if they need to. So I don't think it's really like a big deal with Daishen Nix here. But do you have any news or information on expectation of his availability tonight, Justin?
No, not really. I didn't have him in the rotation, even if he's healthy. I think they were pretty clear, and all the Rockets beat writers were pretty consistent on what that second unit would look like. It'd be Christopher Matthews, Şengün, and then Tari Eason, KJ Martin. I don't think like Daishen Nix, Ty Washington. Ty Washington is going to be G League for a lot when he's healthy. So I think the rotation is pretty clear. I never really expected Daishen Nix to be a everyday player.
Any thoughts on who starts tonight at center? If they go back to Bruno Fernando, it's a very different matchup, right? The first matchup you're going against verticality with Clint Capella at the center spot. Now you're going up against bulk with Steven Adams at the center spot. Any thoughts on whether Şengün or Fernando are more likely to draw the start tonight?
I will lean Fernando. Just because he played well in the opener. I think they want some consistency in the roles. What do you lean, Mike?
100% for. I'd be shocked if it's Şengün. After the game, Silas was saying that it fit really well. They were able to play through Şengün in the second unit to not kind of get away from the offensive one and run with the first unit. So it's here to stay. It sounds like, unless something happens or just doesn't work. But it went pretty well in those Fernando minutes. He was really good.
It did. It absolutely did. I could also see him get absolutely dominated on the offensive boards by Steven Adams.
Absolutely.
And the pick setting for Steven Adams tonight, he's going to have free range to be laying wood for clearing lanes for Ja all night long. Yeah. We'll talk about Ja more on the premium show tonight. On the Memphis side of things, Dylan Brooks.
One thing to add really quick, Eric Gordon did play the backup point guard spot, so that was kind of interesting. And he said they would miss Ty Washington, so if Daishen Nix plays, he's probably not even in there.
Yeah. All right, Dylan Brooks doubtful for Memphis once again. Desmond Bane, thankfully not on the injury report, had a little bit of a scare there, missing some time in the last game. Without Dylan Brooks, we saw them, and no Zaire Williams, no Jaren Jackson, no Danny Green as well. We saw them play a little bit tighter than they normally want to play. The game did go into overtime. Mike, what are your thoughts on the Grizzlies in the absence of Dylan Brooks and Jaren Jackson Jr. and Danny Green tonight?
Yeah, it certainly sounds like Dylan's going to sit, get the doubtful tag, got ruled out early. He did get called a game time decision, I should say, actually, but never really thought he had a chance to play. So, we got early overlap with Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones, I believe, so did for Desmond Bane, and got a little overlap in the first quarter with John Moran, which almost never happens, I feel like, last year. And then he got some overlap late in the game, hit a big shot. So really encouraging for Tyus Jones to see, a little bit of a tightened up rotation. LaRavia and Roddy, the rookies, didn't do too much there. But yeah, Bane, still got dinged up, still got 37 minutes overtime help. But yeah, it's you and Gary are just going to go nuts talking about this team tonight, man. It's going to be really juicy. I don't
Very
even.
great.
Ja's my anti guy. I had to cover Boyan for matchups. Like it's just
Dude, he is gonna murder tonight with his
Yeah.
perimeter defense against the Rockets.
Yeah.
36% usage in the opener. It's the John Morant show. And you mentioned the rotation, the Roddy, Laravia. They went 10 deep, right? And
they went 10 deep, but they
10 deep.
Yeah,
you know?
but those two guys, they were not comfortable playing.
Yeah, and it makes sense that how thin they are, that they play Tyus and Ja together, and that worked to close the game. Two Tyus and
So-
three. The surprise to me, I mean, not surprise, I guess, but Santi Aldama, like 34 regulation minutes.
That's what I mean by tight. That's what I mean by tight.
He did a big role, and it makes sense. Like he had a really great preseason. You know, he's got a lot of buzz. He's a guy you know what to expect from. We talked about him in the preview pod. You know, 9+ rebounds per 36 over his career. Good rebounder, and with Ja drawing so much attention, he's going to get good looks and wide open looks from three and hit them, right? So, yeah, I mean, the minutes are a little inflated with 39 if you just look at OT, but 34 is really healthy. I will note, though, that Brandon Clark dealt with some foul trouble, which limited his minutes a bit and led to Santi playing a bit more than usual. Clark picked up 2 fouls in his first 3 minutes, and then in the second half, he picked up another 2 fouls in his 4-minute stint. So they were direct subs, like Clark subbed in for Santi Aldama. So I think the 34 might be a little high, assuming Clark can stay out of foul trouble, but solid role overall for Santi.
Yeah, really, really strong role, both in terms of minutes, in terms of shots and opportunities. And he rebounded the ball really, really well in that game as well, which, you know, they need in the absence of Jaren Jackson Jr. And honestly, I'm fading Memphis a ton this season in terms of season-long wagers and win totals and all sorts of things. But this is a potential way to unlock their upside is if when they bring back Jaren Jackson, it's Jaren Jackson at the 5 and Aldama at the 4, and now you've got shooters all around Ja, and then it's watch out. And before it's, you know, Jaren at the 4 still kind of shooting and like it's really big interior defense, but in Adams setting all these picks, and Adams creates a lot of space for Ja with the picks that he sets. But if it was Ja wouldn't even need those picks if the floor was spaced as well as it could be with these guys. So I'm pretty interested in Aldama's quick rise during the course of the preseason and training camp.
Yeah, 53 pointers, obviously overtime. I think they had 26 wide open. Like no Dillon Brooks, and they are bombing. Love to see it, man. So, and which I talked about this in the preseason, like little bit of Dillon Brooks trade buzz going on. You know, if you want to be speculating.
Yeah, the problem there is just they would need to get a wing back. You look at just now, like what they're running out on the wing, it's not great, especially without Zaire. Like either Zaire, Conchar, Raleigh, those guys need to step up. They need someone else to just replace and eat some minutes there alongside Desmond Bane. So that would have to be the construct for me. Like they're a team that's built to really make a run and contend now. They're trying to, you know, push it forward rather than start rebuilding and get rid of a vet like Dillon Brooks. So they would need someone back, you know, that would fill in that hole.
Yeah. And John Conchar was fantastic in the opener as well. Shot the ball well from 3, 4 for 9. Did the things that Conchar usually does. Rebounds the ball really, really well, makes the right plays, was always kind of in the right spot. Really good opener for the Grizzlies on the whole. They hold on in overtime after the Knicks make a late surge there. Okay, in terms of
real quick, I took John Morant 7-1 to score 40. He's going for 50 ball today.
Good to know. All right, on the other injury front, man, the Bulls, they go into Miami. I don't want to say shock the world because I think we're all a little bit nervous about Miami this year. One of Justin's big win under totals as well. And they go in and they get a win in South Beach without Zach LaVine. They will not have Zach LaVine again tonight. We saw Ayo Dosunmu play really, really well, which there's been some Dosunmu buzz during the course of the preseason. We saw Patrick Williams once again not live up to any sort of buzz that has been following him. And we saw DeMar DeRozan do what DeMar DeRozan does, which is just be absurdly efficient in the mid-range while also dishing a ton in that opener. Him and Vucevic, along with Dosunmu, were pretty much the whole kit and caboodle. How do we expect things to look tonight without Zach LaVine once again? Gallagher, I'll start with you.
Yeah, IO season, certainly a much tougher matchup. Tyler Hero got roasted in this game, and we could talk about Hero. I guess you guys can talk about it later. But yeah, it should be pretty similar. Curious to see what happens with Patrick Williams. Just a complete shell of himself. Really disappointing. DeMar lit up Caleb Martin as well. Should be looking at a really good role here. But yeah.
I mean, it makes sense why Patrick Williams is on the verge of losing that starting job to Javonte Green. And we came in the season. I was thinking Williams was just penned in as the starter, like no question. And I mean, we see why. Like he plays 28 minutes and he's dusty. He just takes a couple shots, very invisible. Super disappointing for him in a spot where he needs to step up and be more assertive without LaVine. And yeah, we tweeted out that Zach LaVine will sit one leg of back-to-backs for the near future. I wanted to send up a follow-up tweet that says status alert, DeMar DeRozan will be Michael Jordan for one leg of back-to-backs for the near future. You look at the sample, man, in over the last 2 seasons, including the opener, Zach LaVine's missed 15 games. And DeMar DeRozan in those 15 games averaging 49.2 FanDuel points per game. 34, 5, and 6 are his averages in those games. And incredible. In terms of his floor, it's unbelievable. So in 14 of those 15 games, he's put up at least 38 FanDuel points. Yeah. Super consistent, real good floor, real good roll. And he had no problems against a very stout and respectable defense. You know, you're like, oh, you know, Vooch has Bam and DeMar faces a Heat defense that guards the paint and protects the paint well. It's like, who cares? Like DeMar's just out there balling. So yeah, I mean, he's just penciled into a massive role. His floor is crazy high in these spots without Zach LaVine. So yeah, Dosunmu, you know, really good supporting stats, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals. And then Vooch had 17 rebounds too. That's kind of surprising as well. But
you look at that, the lineups that Vooch is going to be playing in, and there's not, I mean, if Patrick Williams is not going to be a great rebounder, which is disappointing that he hasn't been with his athleticism, man, like Patrick Williams has a little bit of the stuff that has bothered me about Kuminga, but to a lesser degree, because he just isn't as like, he doesn't get as many opportunities to just like go one-on-one. But he just doesn't move enough without the ball. And like, he doesn't lean into his athleticism. It's really, really frustrating because he's kind of the key to unlocking any sort of ceiling for the Bulls. And we've seen no real progression or no signs of optimism around that. But Io, man, he looks amazing and looks like just such an incredible steal for them, getting him in the second round, as he's looked from the time he's stepped into a role there. So
what stuck out to me from Io too is the 6 rebounds. Like he's not a rebounder traditionally, but he added size during the offseason, and he was playing these lineups where, you know, Vooch and Io are both seeing a bit of a rebound rate spike. That unlocks it because we know the assist and steals will be solid. The scoring is going to be, you know, what it
inconsistent, is. but not super high end, but not, he's going to get you double digits most nights.
But if he can rebound, if he can get you, you know, 5-6 rebounds a game, puts him on a whole new level, you know?
Yeah. A few things if I can add. So just look at the timeline on LaVine. They played the last preseason game, it was fine, and they had a set of like 3 practices, and he had discomfort from that, and they are going to, quote, have to ramp him up. So on top of the management of the back-to-backs, like, his minutes are going to be down. So really, really rough start for him.
A lot of DeMar DeRozan early in the season, and Vooch for sure. Okay, some other smaller...
Great matchup for DeMar, too, against Washington. They don't help off a lot, so he could go completely ham.
Nice. Yeah. Another... on the Miami Heat side, no Omer Yurtseven, no Victor Oladipo once again. We kind of saw what their rotation looked like in the opener, which was a whole lot of Jimmy Butler, a whole lot of Bam Adebayo, a whole lot of Tyler Hero, a whole lot of nothing from Kyle Lowry. It was kind of a continuation of what we saw in the playoffs. Strus ended up being the main guy off the bench that played a ton. And basically it was like kind of like they played 9, but they played 6 guys 9 or more minutes in a game that, you know, they were trailing the whole game pretty much. They were just playing from behind and chasing. Justin, what are your thoughts on what we're going to see from the Heat, and how long can they keep up these types of minutes on this veteran squad?
I think we'll continue to see it, you know, and it's really alarming that in this spot without Oladipo, Duncan Robinson only saw 11 minutes. I thought he would be more like an 18-20 type role even. But if he's only seeing 11 minutes here, Gabe Vincent only 16. That basically they just, like you said, played a 6-man with Strus. I will add to one thing that stuck out to me is, we've talked about this before with Bam Adebayo and how we don't see quite the ceiling for him because he's been playing with Kyle Lowry and Kyle Lowry curbs his assist upside. I think we're seeing the same thing with Tyler Hero as well. His assist upside now starting alongside Kyle Lowry is going to be curbed too. Yep. So, his role was great. He played great. He looked great, but like the assist, I'm going to have to start dialing back just a little bit. Healthy minutes for Caleb Martin, 28 and a half as a starting power forward. We only saw 30 seconds of Haywood Highsmith at the end of the first half. So Caleb should be locked in a good minutes. Not much else for me on this game. Jimmy did Jimmy things. Bam was disappointing. And Tyler Hero, I think he's going to have a big year.
Yeah. I'll add, Max Strus was basically in a Tyler Hero role, like really big role, right? Mm-hmm. I fired 200 to 1 6-man. It's still up. If the Miami Heat are good and he gets that role, like if Oladipo is just cooked, could be a really good role for him.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. We had projected Strus and Robinson pretty similar minutes, basically assuming it to be a little bit of a hot hand situation, and Strus had it and Duncan did not. I think Strus is ahead of Duncan just from where they ended up at the end of last year. But I thought that role would be a little bit tighter than the 20-minute gap that we saw in game one.
I mean, you just see in the playoffs, like Duncan's out of the rotation, Strus is starting like a lot of the year. Like there's a huge gap in the level of trust that Spo has in both these guys.
Yeah.
I'll add on top of that, against the Celtics, we saw okay defenders in D'Anthony Melton, Maxey's not terrible, Tucker, all these big wings couldn't keep the Celtics out of the paint. Tyler Hero is there's a chance he might get benched today, down the stretch. So something I want to keep an eye on, which is why I think Strus could kind of cut into Hero in certain matchups and really buoy his value. He's got a little bit more size, not as bad of a defender either.
I would just want to note we have a Jimmy Butler under tonight on points and rebounds. I just think in general you might see some rate compression with Tyler Hero in this starting lineup. That in the removal of PJ Tucker, Martin's not really a huge threat for usage, but with what PJ was doing last year, anybody else in the starting lineup is pretty much an upgrade. And then Tyler Hero over Strus is a big upgrade in terms of usage. I think there's going to be more competition for usage for Jimmy and Bam. Now, Jimmy got to the line 16 times and kind of made it all work last game, but I think there's, I mean, 37 minutes and 16 times to the line got him 24 points. That's kind of my point here, is that I think you're going to see more rate compression. And tonight against the Celtics defense, I'm interested to see how Miami's offense can respond, because they struggled against a Bulls defense that is not known for being one of the best in the league. The Celtics have been, so it'll be interesting to see.
Front end and back-to-back should add that too, so that kind of helps our Jimmy's bet a little as well.
And then Cody Martin is doubtful for New Orleans. LaMelo Ball is out. When we saw Cody Martin leave, was it Cody Martin that got banged? Who got banged up that allowed Book Knight to get into the game?
Cody Martin.
Cody Martin. Yeah. When Cody Martin got banged up, we saw Book Knight play, which I don't think was expected.
No. Right.
They're really, really thin, obviously, to start the season. Playing against the Pelicans, I know this is a game that Gallagher has fired on already in terms of a spread bet. What is the expectation with no LaMelo and no Cody Martin? How things look tonight, Justin? You can kick it off.
Yeah, Rozier, big role, 29.5% usage rate, not a surprise. We saw a little bit of Rozier, DSJ overlap in the first half. They overlapped four minutes. They might be a little bit more now without Cody Martin. I'm not sure how much they want to play Book Knight, honestly. DSJ, a little bit fluky, 2 steals, 2 blocks. He has averaged 2 stocks per 36 over his career, so not really kind of expecting the defensive stuff to hold. And DSJ kind of uncharacteristically low 14% usage rate as well. So Rozier, huge role. Gordon Hayward, 14.5 first half minutes, 26% usage. Should see those minutes kind of climb up to 30 plus. And then PJ Washington, we loved him. He's had it, we knew he had to step up without Miles Bridges, without LaMelo Ball. He showed off 39.4 FanDuel points. Oubre is Kelly Oubre. He's as volatile and inconsistent as they come.
Started hot, got into foul trouble.
13 and a half first half minutes, which is fine. But I think he has more of a shaky minutes floor than we think. I'm not sure. I don't think he's a Clifford guy. I think he can get in trouble some nights where he gets yanked and McDaniels comes in and eats into his minutes a little bit. So Oubre is very GPP hot and cold. Can't really rely on him. Another thing that stuck out to me was this like Mason Plumley versus Nick Richards thing. We saw them like almost split minutes in the first half. Plumley played 13, Nick Richards 11. Nick Richards played really well off the bench, super aggressive, super high usage rate. So that's something I'm keeping an eye on moving forward. But yeah, I mean, I would take this box score with a little bit of salt, a little bit of grain of salt, because they're playing a Spurs defense that has no point of attack defenders, no perimeter defenders that are plus, and they might be like a historically bad team this year that might like 15 wins is in their range of outcomes. So a little bit of grain of salt with some of this as well.
I'll pray for good thing.
I was just going to say my big takeaway from this was trying to figure out where all the usage is going to go in the absence of Miles Bridges and LaMelo Ball. And certainly, as we expected, it would go to Terry Rozier, it would go to Gordon Hayward and PJ Washington some. What I wasn't expecting was to see really good usage and assist rates out of Mason Plumley. They ran and organized a little bit more offense through him, which he's been able to do in the past. And then Nick Richards had a really strong usage rate off the bench as well. So I think you might see these bigs historically when LaMelo and Terry Rozier and Bridges were all out there. Plumley was basically just picking up scraps off the offensive rebounds. I think you're going to see him a little bit more involved in the offense this year, to the point where if he can separate from Richards in terms of minutes, you might have a GPP play on your hands on occasion. I don't know if he's been able to so far in the preseason with how well, in the start of the regular season, with how well Nick Richards has played.
Few things to add. Pray for Terry Rozier. He gets my guy Herb, so definitely a fade Rozier spot today. Zion, pray for PJ Washington as well. 20 shots at the rim. He bombed a shot from 6 feet away. That was his longest shot in the opener. Pelicans are going to destroy. They are going to break the rate out and kill these Hornets, man.
Yeah, I got him at 6.5 now. I think that's still good. Zion had like 20 paint points in the opener, just like ate hard. Justice for Zion. Dink hates to see it, but Zion's gonna have another.
Take it over though.
I mean, Van, I first and foremost, we are 2-0 on Zion props on the year.
Okay, so that's how you're gonna make all your money back that you're gonna lose on best ball.
What the books were hanging out there on Zion in the opener, 25.5 PRA was just disrespectful. It's 36.5 today. You don't see jumps quite that big.
That's nuts.
And two, I don't know if you've listened to our predictions preview, but I have the Pelicans as the number 3 seed in the Western Conference this year, Justin. So
they have a good roster.
Pelicans
and capitulation on Trey Murphy, who's only scoring 8 points a game according to Dink.
I did have Trey Murphy for 8 points a game. I think we finished the season with him at like 10. We'll see if he can be over under 10 on the season. But no, I like the Pels. Again, I'm hoping Zion just doesn't shove it down my throat with like 55 a game this year.
Oh, it's coming, Dink. It's coming.
Bad, yeah.
It's a problem.
It's bad. 33% usage rate in the opener? My goodness.
It was tasty. There wasn't a lot of girth to stop. They had some length, but there's not a lot of girth to stop on the inside Zion from getting to the rack. We'll see if that changes tonight against Charlotte. I imagine it will not.
I got the ESPN shot chart. Look at this shot chart, dude. This is Zion on the left over here. Look at that. That's just nuts, man. Just straight.
He just doesn't need to shoot anywhere else.
Yeah.
He's just so dominant that why not? Why not take 2-foot shots?
It's Shaq with a dribble is what we're looking at these days. All right, that'll do it for today's injury report analysis show. I want to thank Justin Fan from Underdog Fantasy. Make sure to follow them at Underdog. Where do the underscores come in? Underdog Fantasy _ NBA?
Underdog _NBA.
Underdog _NBA. Make sure to follow them for the best news team in the business. They've got them for all sports. We're talking NBA for this show, but you can follow them for all sports on the news front. Gallagher matchups column. Make sure to read it. Get prepped for the show. We'll be behind the paywall at 5 o'clock Eastern. Myself and Gary Hartman at the wheel talking about this 11-game DFS slate. If you are not subscribed to Established Run, make sure to head on over to our subscribe page and check out the product offerings that we have, including a props package that we are firing away on, as well as the DFS package. If you're not interested in subscribing to our content and giving us the monies, at least give us the clicks and subscribe to the YouTube channel here and feed that algo. As I said yesterday, nom, 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 nom. Feed it. All right. Enjoy your weekend. We'll be back on Monday at 2 o'clock with another edition of Established Run's NBA Injury Report Analysis Show. Take care, everybody.